We believe in much society. Research means investigate something you don't know or understand. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today, we will be presenting based on domestic violence, and our study topic is all about trends in domestic violence in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic.
My name is Christine Sabo A. Palmas, and I'm going to start to present to you the introduction. In the global midst of COVID-19 pandemic, individuals have proportionately adjusted their lives and protection within themselves and through the community. However, apart from the protection in terms of the virus, people are able to cause violent behavior as uncertainty to the worst situation within the inside environment during the isolation. The COVID-19 has caused global devastation in relation to the outcome of the community as mistreatment of safety upon themselves. Most of the consequences of the pandemic is violence against children, adolescents, commonly women, are confronted with abuse and marked as threatening in the life of every individual. It is not just concerned in a specific country, but it is also concerned in different countries, most especially from the time of the pandemic, for it could be the cause and a prominent indication that could lead to the increasing number of violence. These forms of violence are physical, psychological, and sexual, and most especially that women and children are the common victims of this issue. In the Philippines, in the start of pandemic, the vulnerable marks of crisis and the lives of people are inevitable, which has caused the abuses during the isolation. Many report and many investigation of the intimate partner violence are seeking for attention and safety. In accordance to the study of Mandin 2020, which is in Davao City, during the Enhanced Community Quarantine or the ECQ, there are 3,700 cases of violence against women and children are recorded by the Philippine National Police. This is conspired with the critical issues and effective abuse against the lockdown and the isolation of the pandemic.
Purpose and objective of the study. A research study was being conducted in order to review the cases in terms of domestic violence that being conspired before and during the COVID-19 pandemic, in order to review critical issues and the effect of the abuse, humiliation, and tortures among the victims. It is also yields information including the physical, verbal, financial, psychological, and sexual abuse in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic for the cause of isolation within the home environment, work field, and for that it is continuously tolerated and risk to the community. According to Muhaji 2020, the mayor of Quezon City, Joy Belmonte, told the reporters that 20% have increased in the number of cases in the Philippines, while other countries have 30%. In Quezon City's women's desk, including the child support desk, receives more than 10 complainants and abuses per week. Before the pandemic began, they only received around 5 complaints each week. So, this study is aims to show sympathy towards these issues, in which it is to encourage the person in authority to give demand, orders, and capable to present reports at is it pays across rail violence during the lockdown.
For the statement of the problem, in this area, it is a concise description of our research issue and how we will be able to address this problem. And in this particular reason, we come up with a research questions in order to determine what are the trends in domestic violence in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic. So the following questions are: what are the common forms of domestic violence committed? For the second one is that What is the average age of the victims? Who experience domestic violence? For the third one, what specific gender usually commits domestic violence? And lastly, what is the rate of domestic violence in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic? The hypothesis of our study states that there is no significant relationship in domestic violence in Davao City before and during pandemic if the study tested null hypothesis at 0.05 level of significant.
In the theoretical framework, there are two theories being applied to this study. First is the general strain theory, and second is the congruence theory. The general strain theory was developed by Robert Agnew in the year 1992, and it is justified by negative emotions such as frustration, resentment, and anger that are possible to increase due to the stressor situations wherein person experiences threats to his or her safety. The theory applies during the COVID-19 pandemic, which asserts tension, stress within the family and parents' interaction that is caused to the implementation of lockdown and most especially crisis, result to the increasing number of the violence. The second theory is the congruence theory. The congruence theory was developed to understand the basic psychological theory in communication and persuasion. According to the study of Ficalor, developed within the behavior of the attitude involves the instances towards the victimization and crime to produce the tentative approach to the problem. These are commonly caused by the moods of human behavior.
In this figure, it shows about the conceptual framework, in which we, the researcher, identified that the independent variable is the COVID-19 pandemic. It is the presumed cause because it can affect the dependent variable, which is the trends in domestic violence.
To the University of Mindanao, especially to its students, administrators, teachers, and future researchers, as well as to the residents of Davao City and other local government agencies. For Davao City Police Office, this can help the PNP to determine what are the solutions and prevention to ease and detect the domestic violence in Davao City. For the Davao City residents, this can help them to know what are the effects of domestic violence towards individual and give them awareness on what are the possible actions to divert violent behavior. For the administrators, this study will give them new knowledge of the university to determine the trends in domestic violence in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic. For the professors, the result of the study will give them awareness regarding on the trends in domestic violence and gain more knowledge and use this site to teach students about the related topic. For the criminology students, this study will give knowledge to them and awareness to the students that will help them to determine the appropriate site to use as their data, their studies, and to ponder carefully on what action or steps will do to the increasing number of domestic violence in Davao City. And for the last one, this can be important for the future researchers because this will give them insights and would help them with their future study. They can also use this for future related research as their secondary source of data and prove the trends in domestic violence in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic.
The researchers used descriptive method in conducting the study and to interpret collection of data from the genuine sources. According to the study of Dulog in 1993, the descriptive method is aimed to discover the new events and inferences in the actual relationship of the survey. It is also described that the patterns of the activity resulting to the explanation of the work is compressed by facts from the respondents. Considering that this method will be analyzed and interpreted in the trends of domestic violence in Davao City before and during the COVID 19 pandemic.
Our study will be conducted within the locality of Davao City. And the respondents of the study are the personnel from Davao City Police Office, Women and Children Protection Desk, who keeps records and other data regarding domestic violence cases before and during COVID-19 pandemic.
We, the researchers, use secondary data that contains relevant statistics and other information connection with our study. The independent and dependent variable will be answered through the use of data being gathered pertaining to the domestic violence in Davao City. We also develop a letter of request in order to obtain data in domestic violence cases in Davao City before and during COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, the data will be validated first by the experts in the field of law enforcement agency.
Conclusion of this study, the trends of domestic violence in Davao City before and during the COVID 19 pandemic. We are seeking for assistance and safety from those victims of these abuses, most especially the women. And for recent years, that violence against women are in the increasing rate. Moreover, through this year of COVID, wherein the COVID 19 pandemic have been transpired, we are seeking for the service and assistance to this abuse or to this issue. Our motivation in this study is the guide to the domestic violence that happened, most especially in the situation today, from the negative outcome of the COVID pandemic, and considering the ability of orders and the principle of this violence that exists in our society. We would be able to prevent and continue from what we have been accomplished before. And we are expressed for the positive outcome, not just even within the individuals, but of course in the community itself.